Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me here as we talk about COVID-19 here in Erie County. We have 13 new positive cases of COVID-19 in Erie County to report since last Friday. One of these individuals is in their 80s, one in their 60s, 4 are in their 50s, 2 are in their 40s, 3 are in their 20s, 1 is a teenager, and 1 is between the ages of 5 and 12. 5 of the new cases are located in Zone 1, 4 are in Zone 2, 1 in Zone 3, 1 in Zone 4, and 2 located in Zone 5. This information will be posted on the cumulative cases map by zone at eriecountypa.gov. We know that all but 3 of these cases do have a connection to known positives and that some are connected to Mother's Day gathering connections. The numbers today take us to 143 cumulative positives with 3,111 negatives. The number of recovered cases we have is at 106. An update on surrounding counties includes Crawford County with 21 cases, McKean is reporting 11 cases and 1 death, Venango County 8 cases, and Warren County has 2 cases. Chautauqua County has 53 cases and 4 deaths, and Ashtabula County now has 232 cases and 26 deaths. The state is reporting 62,234 cases and 4,418 deaths. Our environmental team received various complaints over the weekend about large gatherings and sports-related activities taking place without any physical distancing or masking. We urge everyone to consider those around you. The precautionary measures are in place to help you save the lives of your friends, your family, your neighbors. Keep that 6-foot distance from anyone who does not live inside your home. Wash your hands frequently, sanitize surfaces, and wear a mask if you leave your home to go anywhere near anyone who does not live in your home with you. And as a reminder, individuals or families who need a mask can complete a request form online at the link bit.ly/mask-erie-request.com, or you can call Serve Erie at 814-636-5286 to submit a request if you're unable to access a computer. Individuals will not be able to stop by the Serve Erie location to pick up a mask without submitting a request first, either by phone or by the internet. If you are a community partner, a business, or organization who is in need of masks for a group, please contact edchinfo@eriecountypa.gov. That's edchinfo@eriecountypa.gov, and provide your organization's contact information with the number of masks being requested, and the health department will try to assist you with fulfilling that mask request. Finally, today is the last day to register to vote in the upcoming primary on June 2nd. In order for your registration to be in on time, we advise you to register online at VotesPA, that's VOTESPA.com, and you can do this before midnight tonight. You can also drop off a completed registration at the Erie County Courthouse in the ballot drop-off box out by the front door, but you only have until 4:30 today to do that. The deadline to apply for a mail-in ballot is next Tuesday, the 26th of May. Again, you can do that until 11:59 p.m. that day at votespa.com. The courthouse will be open for in-person voting activities on May 20th to 22nd, that's this Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and next Tuesday, May 26th. If you haven't applied and would like to vote in a single visit, you should come to the courthouse and take advantage of those opportunity on those days from 8 a.m. to 4:30. Please keep in mind that the courthouse is closed on Monday, May 25th, in observance of Memorial Day. Regarding the return of absentee and mail-in ballots, over 28,000 people have applied for absentee and mail-in ballots thus far, but we've only received about a quarter of those numbers back. So if you have your ballot, it's important that you return it. Act 77 requires that anyone who applied for an absentee or mail-in ballot may only vote by provisional ballot at their polling place. So if you've applied for that ballot, you need to fill it in, or you'll just get a provisional ballot that day, and then things will be rectified in the voting office. So we strongly encourage you to return your ballots as soon as possible. One of the advantages to a mail-in ballot is that you don't need to go out in crowds on Election Day. And for those who are concerned about the potential of contracting COVID-19 on Election Day, the mail-in ballot is a very, very good alternative. You can drop off your mail-in ballots at that drop-off box outside of the courthouse at 140 West 6th Street. And again, that box is open until 8 p.m. on election night for you to drop those ballots off. And you can also, again, go back into the courthouse this Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or next Tuesday to do your vote by mail if you would like to. Many of our poll workers have decided to sit out this election because of their own personal concerns over COVID-19 exposure. Many of them are older or have underlying health problems, and they may feel more vulnerable to the worst aspects of the illness. So having said that, the county is in need of poll workers, and the pay is $125 per day, and you work from 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. It's a great way to give service back to your community. So if you're interested in working the polls on June 2nd, 2 weeks from tomorrow, please call 451-6303. That's 451-6303, or email Doug Smith at dsmith@eriecountypa.gov. And at that, I will turn it over to the media for questions. And we'll start today with Erie Times News.
Hi, Kathy. It's David. The state is reporting a fourth death due to COVID in Erie County. Is that anything you know about? The state's also reporting many counties have different figures because of a change in the way that deaths are being reported statewide.
Yeah, I don't have any information on that additional death at this point. And, I've talked about this before, there are some discrepancies with our numbers and the state numbers, and we're always trying to rectify those, as soon as we can, or to try to figure out where the discrepancies are. But we feel very comfortable with the numbers that we do report and what I've reported to you at this point.
Okay, and going back to the death from last week, have you been able to get any additional information on that?
I do not have any additional information to report. Again, our hearts go out to the family. We're letting them decide if they want to reveal in any way, as we have seen in the past through an obituary, about the death of their loved one. But again, the county's health department is mostly concerned about mitigating the spread of COVID-19, about reducing, that spread. And of course, that case would no longer be of an issue to the work that we're trying to do, which is to keep the public safe. Talk Erie.
Yes, good afternoon, ma'am. It's Joel Natale. Wanted to get your reaction to the jump to 143. It puts us at 18.5 cases per 100,000 population over the last 14 days, which is the highest level that we've seen so far. What are your thoughts?
Well, we knew when we went into yellow that most likely we would see our numbers increase, and we have. We've got still numbers that are below the threshold, but higher numbers than we have seen, as you indicated, up to this point. Over the weekend, we've had numerous reports of gatherings and even some sports teams meeting to practice, and those are all things that are not gatherings over 25 people with no social distancing and no mask wearing, and those are things that obviously shouldn't be happening under the yellow phase. We're still trying to control this virus. It's important that people understand this virus is in our community. As I reported today, there are some of these new cases. We do not know where they had contact with someone who was positive or where they picked up the virus. And so we're going to continue to work on that. But the virus is out there spreading. It's looking for its new home, its new host, and that could be you. And so these are the things that we thought would happen under the yellow phase, and they are concerning, of course, but I'm just asking everyone to continue to do their part to control the spread of the virus.
Just as a quick follow-up, do we know if any of these new positive cases are coming from antibody testing, which again, Secretary Levine has said would be added to our total, but wouldn't necessarily indicate a current infection.
None of our 143 cases are in those numbers. It would include the antibody testing. But it may be why we're a little bit off from the state on some of our numbers. But we're looking at the active cases, the cases that we are following, that we are doing the contact tracing on, that we are trying to stop the spread from.
Thanks for the explanation. Thank you.
Sure. Erie News Now.
Good afternoon. As we see this little jump for us here, admittedly over the weekend, so spread out over a handful of days, but especially after having the nice weekend and pleasant weather right now, in the back of your mind, is there that lingering fear that as the weather turns nicer, that could really play a big role in perhaps causing a spike?
I think it will all play a role, and I think all of us, and myself included, need to remember that we are still in the middle of this pandemic. And it's easy to get a little bit lax. It's easy to become a little bit, feel a little bit more relaxed about the wearing your mask, keeping your social distancing, your physical distancing. I even found myself, I was on a long bike ride again this weekend, and I was seeing people out, and then I was seeing some things that just didn't look very safe. But it took me a minute to remember, yes, we're still in the COVID pandemic, and we all need to be doing the right thing. And so I think that's the danger, I guess, that we all have to be aware of, that we get complacent, that we forget, that we don't do our part to try to mitigate the spread. And so I think every one of us has to consider that, because we're not under the stay-at-home order now, so we're out more than we were. It was easier, I guess, when we felt, that we were in the stay-at-home order and we were staying home more, but now that we're out and about and there's more places to shop, et cetera, it's really doubly important that we follow the guidelines that have been given to us. Jet TV.
Hi, Kathy. It's Samir. So you mentioned a little earlier about the large gatherings over the weekend. So whose responsibility is it to kind of go out there and enforce that there are not gatherings of 25 plus, et cetera?
So first of all, we don't have like a team of people out driving around looking for large groups. So let's start with that. I think so. The responsibility starts with the individual, right, and the people gathering. We do get complaints though and local law enforcement is definitely a partner in helping to control those gatherings. So often local law enforcement will go out to those gatherings and educate. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to educate people as to the danger that they are putting themselves and everyone else in those groups in by gathering in that manner. And so sometimes our enforcement team will be going out to these gatherings, but often we rely upon local law enforcement. And I have to say this weekend, for example, there was conversations going back and forth with the city of Erie and their law enforcement and their administration, and we have a really good partnership with them. And so they were able to go out and try to end some of these gatherings that were happening.
So then there's, just to clarify, no specific department to do that?
No, there's no specific department. Of course, through the health department, we have been running this enforcement effort ever since the beginning. With our businesses mostly. And, but we've also certainly reached out to our law enforcement when we've heard about these large gatherings. And there have been times when we have the personnel available that they are actually, going out, again, trying to educate people as to what the issues are. But when it comes to, for example, a park that's owned by the municipality, that would really be up to the municipality to be controlling the crowds at their own park. The same thing at, let's say, Presque Isle or one of our state parks. That would be up to the DCNR, Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, to patrol their own park. And so we would expect that the agencies who are overseeing those particular pieces of land, whether it be a community park or a larger park, that would be done through the municipality. And when it comes to just large gatherings in general, the calls, if the complaint comes in, that would usually be turned over to the law enforcement from that community. And some communities, as we know, depend on the state police for their enforcement. They don't have their own police force. So the state police, of course, under the governor, also have that jurisdiction.
Thanks.
Erie Times News.
Yes, Kathy. As you said, there were reports of several large gatherings over the weekend. You know, the one that we reported on at Roger Young Park seemed to be the biggest. Is there any investigating going on as far as that particular one, or even the other ones? You know, we've seen the ones and heard about the ones over at McDowell and some of the other areas around the county. But specifically for the Roger Young one, that seemed to be very well organized. Is there any investigating going on today about that? Is there anything new in terms of reaching out to the officials that ran that?
So the city of Erie pretty much took over on that park because on that gathering because it was in their park, and so I'm not really sure what the city of Erie is doing regarding that. But it seemed like a number of the gatherings had to do around sports teams and trying to gather with their sports teams, and that's a real concern because we would hope that the coaches would understand the importance of not gathering at this particular time, whether they be young people or teenagers or older people. There is a huge risk. We've seen, obviously, that children are not immune to COVID-19 and its ravages, and so we would hope that the coaches would understand this. And so I think the effort here has been so far from the county's perspective is to talk to the overall arching organizations. You know, whether that would be like the soccer organization or the baseball organization or the football organization or whichever kind of large sport organization, so that they understand the guidelines and then they can press that down to their coaches and have people hopefully comply.
All right, so just to be clear, what you're saying, Kathy, is that you have the environmental task force, but really it is up to the city of Erie for the city, Mill Creek Township for Mill Creek, Harbor Creek Township, and down the line, each municipality needs to kind of get the word out to their communities, each and of themselves on this matter.
That's right, because these gatherings are often on their property, the property of the community, you know, the municipality, whether it be the city of Erie, Mill Creek, Harbor Creek, you know, on and on. Those properties belong to those municipalities, and they are responsible for what happens at their own property. When it came to, for example, playgrounds being shut down, tennis courts being shut down, basketball hoops being shut down, that's all done at the municipal level.
Thanks.
Sure. Talk Erie?
Yes, hi, Kathy. Questioning about how, as the state officials start creating the parameters for green phase, what is Erie County's role, and are you able to have, let's say, folks from the chamber weigh in other, you know, trade groups and so on, so that green could really work for us both safely and helpful for our economy here in the Northwest?
So I think when they're looking at the green level, and again, we haven't gotten any guidance on it yet, the first thing they're looking at is the science, and the science around this disease, the science around the pandemic, because that's what we're trying to do, right, is to save lives, to keep people from getting sick, to keep deaths from happening. And so it will start from that point. Obviously, the economy is a huge piece of that, and in terms of just our community and our wellness as a community, right? We have to have people working and having the money to pay for the things that are necessities in their life. And so how can we do that safely? Again, the guidelines have to come, but we also need our businesses being partners. And I have to say the businesses have been good partners for the vast majority of them. And but now can we start to look at, as we move to the green phase, some of the businesses that have not been able to open and are really on the brink of potentially thinking, can I ever open again, or do I need to just close my business? So how do we help those businesses to get open eventually, and how can we do that safely? But we're really going to have to depend on the science behind this to do it. You can't just decide, well, we just need these businesses open, let's just do it, because you've got to, again, weigh that with the public health aspect. That's a tough balance. It's a tough balance for the administration. It's a tough balance locally as county government. So the chamber can weigh in, and any other group can weigh in, all, you know, with any advice they might have or any requests they might have. I was on a call earlier with those on the Sports Commission and Visit Erie, and they were looking at maybe what some other states were doing, and could we potentially talk to the state of Pennsylvania about that. And I told them they should reach out as a group of interest and what they would like to see happen and what they've seen happen in other states. But again, in most of those other states that have opened, it's too early to find out what the results of that opening will be in terms of their numbers. And we've all seen the reports, I think, that it's many months before we'll have a vaccine that we can depend on. And so what do we need to do in the meantime? And I think we can look to other states. It's helpful that maybe some of them are doing things ahead of us so that we can learn from them and hopefully not make the same mistakes if there are some. So again, it's going to go back to science, the numbers, the cases, the spread, and that's how the state, I believe, is going to make their decision.
Thanks.
Erie News Now?
Hi, I'd like to touch on that again there. As we talk about being able to keep an eye on other states, just how close of an eye is your administration keeping on, say, Ohio, that right now is doing things a little bit ahead of where we are? And if things go well there, could that influence a call to Harrisburg to say, hey, look, this is going well, a handful of steps from us?
Well, we do see Ohio opening things up quicker. I think they've opened up outdoor seating for restaurants. They've got barbers and hair salons open, and a few other things. And obviously, I've heard there's people from our community going over there for some of these things. So that causes us a little bit of a problem as people start to move around more. You know, when you look at Ashtabula's numbers, we have more than 100,000 extra residents than they do, but their numbers are quite a bit higher than ours, 26 deaths. So they certainly haven't seen the low numbers that we've seen. So those are concerns of mine. But I think the jury's still out on whether what Ohio is doing is going to be successful or not. And it is sometimes good when another state goes out ahead of you on some of these so that you can learn from them. I think Pennsylvania did learn from other states when we began to close things down. We had looked and saw what other states were doing across the country, and we saw the issues, and we did some really good things and did them earlier than other states, which I think helped to keep numbers low in some of our counties. But again, there's just so many variables to this. And I can't go back enough to this. It really depends on the people. It depends on the people of Erie County. You know, when I see people out in close proximity to each other, not wearing a mask, sometimes I see them in a building like that. I hear stories from other people when they're in a store, a big store, and they go down an aisle and people have got their masks pulled down. And obviously the people working in that store can't patrol every aisle every minute. And so it depends on the customers, and the customers have to do the right thing for the community. And that's what we're asking people to do, to wear a mask for everyone else in this community, because that's who it protects.
And how useful is it for us to have that kind of look into the future a little bit west of here, to be able to base decisions off of that?
Well, I think it's always good to benchmark against others. I think it's always good to have somebody else leading the way on some of these things that we have no answer to. We don't have enough science knowledge yet about this virus to really know exactly what it is going to do going forward. We don't know what the summer and the warmer temperatures are truthfully going to bring to us. There's theories, but I haven't seen the science yet behind that says it will do one thing or another. Some people think it will react more like the flu, where it might die down and then pick back up in the colder months, but we don't know that to be true. We do know that when you are outside and the breeze is blowing, the virus does dissipate more. When you're in a building together, that's when your danger is at the highest. And that has been shown through numerous studies, that the vast majority of transfer is person to person, and when you're in close proximity, usually inside of a building. So we don't know a lot of these things, and we're just going to have to rely on the good science. But I do think that some states will be able to give us information because they're a week or two or three ahead of us in terms of moving some of these things along. Jet TV?
Yeah, hi, Kathy. Samir again. So I was speaking with restaurant owners today, and they say they pay the health department their permits based on occupancy. So a couple business or restaurant owners were asking, since they've had to reduce their occupancy, will they see a rebate in their fee, or how is that moving forward?
This is the first I've heard anyone bring up that idea or thought, so I don't have a comment on it.
All right, and then I'll move to my next one. With the school districts, I guess kind of seeing the same thing. Obviously, the districts aren't utilizing utilities, cleaning supplies, etc. Will there also be a change within taxes regarding school districts?
School districts don't pay any taxes to us. Are you talking about people
No,
paying
I mean
to the
people
school
paying.
districts? No, I don't think so. Even though they aren't turning on the lights and having the heat on or the air conditioning, etc. They have many other expenses now with technology that maybe they didn't have, and I don't really know enough about the school budgets to give you a good answer on that. But I can tell you in county government, even though many of our buildings aren't fully open, and there probably are some cost savings in certain areas, we're expending money in other areas that we haven't in the past. Let's just say personal protection equipment for employees, and that would be in any business. You still have to have some people in the school buildings coming to work, taking care of things, whether it be your facility staff or others. And so you are going to have other expenses that you didn't normally have. And I don't see any school district actually reducing their taxes at this point because of that.
All right, and then if you could just find out, I guess, the restaurant thing for tomorrow, that would be great.
I'll see. I don't really know if we've had any discussions like that. I mean, obviously, right now, we're in the middle of trying to fight a pandemic. And so, you know, our restaurant, in fact, all of our inspectors and everyone got put onto this pandemic, all of our nurses. We've been doing this work instead of some of the other work that we normally do. With getting some of these new employees on, we're going to be able to go back to doing some of the restaurant inspections and such that we've had. So I don't know if I can have an answer for that for you tomorrow. Erie Times News.
Yes, Kathy, we've asked in the past, and you've mentioned about how you're waiting for information from the state for summer camps. Anything new on that? And I guess with as far as summer camps, sports leagues, are we really going to have to wait till the green phase before any of those are able to open?
We've got no further information, and we've asked for it. I did get an email this morning saying it should be forthcoming. But we are anxiously awaiting that, and pools. That was one of the other big issues we didn't know have any answer for. Can pools open at all?
And pools as well, okay. And then just as I asked in the past, any cases that you've heard of the multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children in Erie County?
So I did specifically ask about that, and we are not aware of any children in our community with that syndrome. Talk Erie, do you have any final questions?
Just a real quick one. What are you hearing from your health partners regarding testing as far as the speeds of tests going back? I heard from a listener today saying they were screened at one of the hospital network testing sites on a Monday morning, didn't find out until Saturday at some point. Is it still going that slow that you know of?
Do you know if that was a negative or a positive?
I don't know that I asked.
Because one thing I have heard is that the negatives have been slower to come back, but the positives have been much quicker. So I'm not saying that if you don't hear back that you are not a positive, but I have heard that the negatives sometimes are taking longer, but the positives have had a quicker turnaround. But it's always been dependent on a number of factors, and we haven't been able to quite put a, it's not been one testing place, it's not even been one lab. It's just been a multitude of factors. And so that's concerning, of course. You know, the Pennsylvania State Labs has been doing really well, I think, from what I hear. That would be run by the Department of Health, Pennsylvania Department of Health, that their lab results have been coming back quite quickly. The other facilities use different labs, sometimes within house, sometimes outside. And so there's been varying degrees of how quick they come back. But I have heard the one thing that positives are usually returning faster than the negatives. And so they may be just trying to catch up. You know, it's obviously important that we get to the positive case first. So they might just say, we only have this much bandwidth. Let's get the positives notified, get them in as a case that can be then contact traced and get people under isolation and quarantine. So that's the only thing I can maybe maybe think that that person didn't hear back from a long time, but that's a theory. It's not a fact, I guess.
Is there a particular situation that sends that test to Exton, to the state lab? What are the circumstances that those go over there?
Everything goes to the state lab. All the testing that's done has to be inputted by the lab where it's at. So if, Dr. X is sending, a sample to lab Q has to put the numbers into the system for the state. And so it just depends on what that lab puts it in there. So it's not about the doctor, it's not about the hospital that's doing the testing, it's about the lab itself and how quickly they get the results up into the NED system. I hope that helps.
Thanks, that's helpful. Thank you.
Erie News Now?
Hi, we're, about 10 days or so now into the yellow phase, starting to, at least I hope, get kind of a feel for how it goes. So what are still your biggest concerns? What are those things that are still on your mind now that we've got a little bit of an idea of how this will work?
Well, my biggest concern is that COVID-19 is still present in our community and still spreading. We know that. And I also know that people are weary. People are weary of COVID-19. They're weary of the stay-home order and now the yellow phase, and they just want to get life back to normal. We all do. We all would love to be, have a life like we had a year ago, right? That is not the reality we live in right now. We live in a situation where we have a pandemic going on. And so my fears are that people will just, again, be so weary of it, they just don't take the time to follow the guidelines that have been set forth. And that people will become, they may say, well, I don't know anybody who has COVID and I'm not worried about it myself. But it's not you often, it's the person that you're with. You might actually be the carrier yourself and not even know that. So again, it goes back to protecting those people we love and care about and being socially responsible for each other. And that's my fear, is that we'll all start to get too lax about following these guidelines. And Jet TV, do you have any final questions?
Yes. Thoughts, reactions to the news of Needful Things Bakery and Cafe in Corey deciding to shut their doors due to their staff being threatened for being open?
So first of all, I mentioned last week, I think it was last Friday, that it was National Decency Day. And decency includes a lot of things. And I really, I don't have evidence to know about these threats, but even the owner saying that there was threats to me is very troubling. I would really hope that no one in our community would be making threats to others for whatever their actions are. That's not completely inappropriate. I'm also glad that the owner of the bakery has decided to go back to following the orders that the governor has set in terms of only doing takeout or delivery, curbside pickup, because I am concerned about moving too quickly on letting people inside of a building, again, a fairly small, confined space. No one was wearing masks that I saw on TV. I'm not saying no one was wearing masks in there because I only saw what I saw on news reports. But so I see it on both sides. It's certainly completely inappropriate to threaten anyone on social media or in any other manner. And I would hope that people would not be doing that and stop doing that if they are.
Thanks.
Sure. All right, with that, I'll conclude here on Monday, and I look forward to being with you the rest of the week. And we will have some guests with me this week from the health department who will, again, have a lot more details on a lot of these issues that people want to hear more about. So with that, I thank you for being with me. I thank you for trying to stay home as much as you can, for staying safe, and for staying calm.